most of us creatives are looking at a situation where we're in a moment of self-assessment. When we don't have the next project in line, there's no assurance that that project's going to exist. We may be looking at the next year plus before work comes back to us, or a project or a creative endeavor that we're used to, an archetypical creative endeavor comes back to us. But we're all going to be in a situation of self-assessment, and if we haven't done it already, more than likely within the next year, every single one of us will be in a situation we're going to have to take a look at where we are, take a look at where we came from, and try to cross-apply some of the skills that we have now into other aspects, or to hopefully reinvent the wheel and reimagine how our creative energy and our creative efforts, our propensity for creativity, can be exploited in a time with such challenges. So Carol Abohatab on the steering committee brought me this idea a couple of weeks ago. Once I got away from the conversation and into a moment of stillness, I saw the value. I was able to apply it to my own self, understand where I come from and what my personal needs are, you know, as an older guy who's kind of been through the activity and certainly lived most of my life on the front end. But I also think it applies to those of you guys that are just starting out, and those of you guys that have kind of been in it and they're maybe in your middle creative life, if you will. It is a conversation that's a little long, but I really think it's important that you hear all the conversation and kind of feel the organic flow, but understand too that there are bits and pieces that you can take and apply to yourself. And if not now, I guarantee you within the next year, year and a half, there are things that are going to be relevant to your life. This may be one of the last of these projects, and so I really wanted to leave you with some of these ideas, and hopefully many of you have found tools to get you through these moments, but I'm really hoping that more of you will come back and revisit these projects and some of the other projects that are on the educational player and find new uses, new applications as you yourself progress to different points of development. Remember, we've always compared points of view to points of development, and in a year from now, you may need this more than you may need it right now. And so hopefully I've provided that answer for you later. All right, good luck, everybody. And here's Carol Abohatab and KC Perkins.
Thank you, KC, for being here. We have been, you and I, discussing over the last months just about this whole idea of our community being in this, you know, kind of stasis, and what we're used to are seasons. Seasonal aspects, summer, winter, fall, and you know, just it seemed like the perfect time to call upon you just to get some thoughts. And you and I have been discussing ways to kind of sit in this stillness and kind of talk about how to move within it, or how to be present for both ourselves and our students at this time. And certainly it's not just instructors that we can talk to, but mainly as teachers, having this need to address this vulnerable place of not knowing, and then kind of how to make some changes in order to go forward.
Well, I think that one thing that I've tried to focus on is growing the capacity to be with all of this. Right. First, I'm growing the capacity for this, which means holding a space for what is here now. So I had to, in the beginning, I had to sort of shift from focusing on what's not happening. I'm not going to this show. I'm not going on the tour bus. I'm not meeting with my staff. We're not learning choreography. I'm not getting to see the performers. So there was all of this, what isn't happening. And then I started to shift the focus inward to what is happening, and asking questions of myself, you know, what is happening? Oh, what is here? Oh, what might I be interested in? Oh, well, if this is a pause, can there still be action in the pause, even though it's not maybe an action that I'm used to doing? I have a certain system, like you said, we have season to season, we're going season to season, we know what this is, we have a structure. Okay, structure removed. What is here now? And can we pause? And there's still this percolation in the pause. There's still movement in the pausing. And as an artist, then I look at it as not just an educator, but as an artist. And I think this is valuable input time, valuable input time. So, you know, if I'm a songwriter, I'm not just always writing song. There's an in-looking time, a time to see what else is here, to go a little quieter, not necessarily hibernation where we're isolated. We don't have to be isolated, but where we can follow the impulses that might rise up now that what we know has been removed. Impulses arising from the unknown places and tapping on the shoulder. Hey, what about this? Hey, do you remember? Maybe try this. And in that way, we are exercising different muscles, right? We're different muscles with our health. We're putting things in our hobo bag, our handkerchief, and our suitcase, our Mary Poppins bag. We're collecting tools. So it's not just the things that we know, but maybe some things that we've always wanted to work on, or things that are other interests, or places that we could build up or, you know, strengthen, so that when we come back with a wholeness, acknowledging worry, acknowledging fear, acknowledging not knowing and the chaotic nature, also embracing what is here. And that can lend itself to trying some other practices.
Sure. And I'm hearing you with that on both ends of that spectrum, because there is the fear and the worry of things not being the way they have been, and also the isolation of it, but also that going back or going forward, what was my initial passion? I find myself thinking about this a lot these days. What was I like when I first had my passion for color guard, when I first had my passion for dance, which came very, far later than that. And, those kinds of, that kind of reflecting and then going forward with that to what could be new and could be different is something that I've really started to kind of force myself a little bit to practice, and to listen more inward than outward, because we're always in this kind of state of having collaborators with us, right? And now that's not so much the case. And so I think maybe I would like you to talk a little bit about how to get to that place of sitting within oneself and kind of finding that inner voice. Because one of the things that just came back to me was when I was studying a long time ago, dance guru actually said to us, don't just move, stand there, while we were improvising. And it was such an odd concept to me. Like, wait a minute, you're asking us to move. So why would we just stand here? And then it just came up again when I was talking to some other people. And I think it is kind of one of these things that clinicians use for the mind-body connection. Don't just speak, sit there. And so this whole idea just came back to me during this time of shelter in place, and figuring out ways to use that, for instance. So I just want to open it up to you and get your ways in which you approach this whole kind of calming down and looking inward.
Well, I think that I have several things. I think that one thing, movement-wise, we can talk about movement, since you were talking about moving from this, sit still, now move from there, from movement, from stillness. One thing movement-wise is move to music. Put some music on for 5 minutes a day and let your body move. And the the other thing you can do with this, just to turn the dial a little bit on this, is, we are used to, as former performers, as educators, as anybody in the activity, moving a certain way and moving, in unison, or making sure we have the perfect hand position. This kind of movement that can happen out of a silent space, like what you were talking about, a quiet space, I'm putting on music and I'm letting my hand just be interested. How does my hand want to move? It just wants to move, and now it just wants to land on my face, and there's music going on, and maybe it looks like we're dancing at the, or we're doing across the floors. Maybe it looks like that. Okay, I'm leaving permission for that to happen. But maybe a different kind of movement happens. I will move sometimes with eyes closed to music, or even without music, and see how my body it just feels good. How does my body want to move? How do my knees want to, oh, now they want to do this. Well, that's new. Well, I'm just going to repeat it because it's satisfying. That feels really great. Okay. And you're tapping into this natural wisdom, this natural knowing that is always there. But there's, when we're in a structured artistic activity, there's a certain kind of movement that we're doing. And this can also feed that. What's wonderful about tuning back in and getting in tune with how our body moves is it can be an incredible diving board off into writing new choreography, right?
Sure.
Oh, and then getting other people, and also, I've been in groups where the choreographers say, oh, try this, or how does that feel? And the performer says, well, I'm doing this thing like this. How about that? And then if you worked on your beat, if you're open to it as a choreographer, you go, I love that. I love that more than what I was doing. So not only are we working on this muscle of tuning back into our own natural way that we want to move to music or no music, we're also opening a space for awareness of how other people are moving and being okay with that too. And even that is, actually, I like that, so we're opening our satellite dish to realms of movement that we might not be normally doing in our structured seasonal form.
That's really cool. Just the thought of the movement part of it, but also that I think when we talk about going inward and finding a place of quiet, people think that we have to sit there and meditate. Well, I know a lot of us are restless, or we just have that affinity for movement, and so the idea of moving in that kind of meditative state is something that people can really use, taking it to anything, even any of the arts, writing, journaling, and drawing. I know you do a lot of this. I see on social media, and it's just so inspiring to see that there's so much more that we get to kind of find inside of ourselves when, as you put it, we listen, we trust, and then we follow it. It's comforting to know that there's what's inside is always there with us, and we don't have to go far to find that sense of kind of well-being and a state of being, rather than always doing something on the external. We could be doing it right here at kind of home. I'm going to ask, is there some way that you find that you get into that place before you start to move, or you start to write, or you start to journal?
Well, I think that the biggest thing for me is creating a ritual, create the time, I have the same space that I go to every morning. And then I bring a journal, or I bring my speaker, I bring a candle to light, I have a meditation cushion if that's what it's going to be. But I've let myself know, hey, I'm showing up for you every day. I've let the voices that don't get heard in myself. So I say these are, you know, I have the KC Perkins that I know that's in the activity. And then who else is she? Who else is in there? All the us that are in there going, hi, remember, you know, that maybe I've closed those voices off because I'm, you know, have this thing that I'm being in front of people. Well, so what I do is, you know, I'm bringing myself to a quiet place. And again, it doesn't have to be quiet, but it's a acknowledged time. You know, I'm going to do these 5 minutes every day. I'm going to do 5 minutes of writing, and then I'm going to do 5 minutes of sitting quietly, and then I'm going to do 5 minutes of movement, something like that. And then I'm done. And what happens, a trust level from inside comes up, a trust level. Oh, I know you're going to show up for me, so I'm going to bring you all these goodies. So I think that I'm just letting myself be willing and curious. So
well, it's kind of like you're showing up to rehearsal.
Right.
You're showing up to a rehearsal for yourself.
Right. Yeah. So here's my exercises. You know, here's the way I warm up, you know, and it doesn't, you know, I think that when you think about meditation with a capital M, you know, we have to know how to do this. Well, there's even just going on our back porch. I've got my eyes closed and I'm just hearing. I'm just letting sounds come in. I'm absorbing the sounds. If it's difficult to have your eyes closed, I just open my eyes and then I'm just watching. I'm being with nature. I'm letting nature, I'm seeing what's there and I'm absorbing. I'm trying not to judge or, oh, I wish this was happening. I'm just letting things absorb, whether it's in my ears or my eyes and that's meditation. You know, if I'm making my cup of tea in the morning and all I'm doing is sipping my cup of tea, I'm just sipping my tea. And that's all I'm doing. I'm not worrying about what I have to do next. I'm not checking my phone. I'm not doing, just sipping the tea and I'm focusing on that. That's meditation. So if anything, anything that you practice, cooking could be a meditation, you know, painting can be a meditation. Hiking can be a meditation. So all of these places, you're allowing space to expand inside yourself. You're just allowing for a loosening, just space loosening. So all these little crooks and crannies and cramped places are it's just a time of swimming, playing tennis, you know, knitting. Any of these things can be practiced in this way, just conscious practicing. I'm in this completely. So I'm moving to music completely. I'm writing completely. I'm just writing. I'm walking on rocks barefoot completely there. So I think that anything can be a practice. Listen to what happens once you sort of, I'm just going to see what's here. It can be a little scary, but little things will come up. Hey, I really used to like the color purple, and go get me some markers. And you go get markers for this inner part that's coming up. Or I really used to like listening, this happened to me, to the Pointer Sisters. I'm downloading the Pointer Sisters and I'm playing it in my car. So once you give yourself the space, little things pop up. And like you said, listen, trust, follow. Listen, trust, follow. You are following the impulse. And think of how that happens then when you're putting a show together later, following the impulse. It's just these magical sparks can happen from having this input time. Your output, it seeps into your output.
It's interesting. A lot of people right now are with students through Zoom and through, you know, the Google Classroom and chat and things like that. Or this past semester of shelter in place with a performance class, I found myself letting them take the movement that they already had and giving them choices of space and effort based on their surroundings, and then having them on Zoom come back together again after they had kind of worked through this process, and then only focus on each other. It was such a spontaneous moment. And so maybe we could be a little bit more curious about how we go into our time together in this age of cyber rehearsals, and kind of figuring out, like, you know, even as we're focusing on basics, even if we're in contact with each other and we're not in cyberspace, we're going into rehearsals at 10 feet apart with only 12 students at a time, or whatever that is. What can we do to kind of even help touch into ourselves and touch into our students, kind of with what we're talking about? Does that make sense?
I mean, I do think that you know, it sounds like you're coming in with, I don't know. I don't know what this is. I don't know that I'm going to know how to do this rehearsal, but I'm going to show up. It's a quality of being. It's a quality of being that sounds like to me. So what happened in the moment that you were able to say, you know what, you take this to your students, you take this, and I wonder where you'll go with this, and then we'll come back. What happened in that moment? You opened, you know, it's like an opening to be willing and vulnerable of, I don't know, because this is something we haven't done before, but I'm feeling like we should try it this way. So there is something that has happened. This is going around your question a little bit, but there is something that has happened during this time of dropping, because we're all in it at the same time. There's been a vulnerability drop and an opening that we're all in this. It's all chaos. We all don't know what this is because we haven't done that before. And in that, these magical moments are happening, you know, because we've all been sort of stripped down from what we know and left open to go, I don't know. So for me, I'm just going to speak for me as an educator, it's incredibly powerful to come in not having to know everything, you know. And I do think sometimes we have, you know, I have had, you know, moments where I have to know this, I have to know the answers, okay, wait, whoa, you know, you're facilitate everybody. All of the answers are here, waiting to be heard, waiting to be seen, waiting to, you allow these answers to come, you know. Oh, well, it's about them moving. Why don't they can come back and echo off each other. I mean, that is just a huge allowing and a huge dropping down of, oh, I have to be capital K, Casey in this moment and know all of the answers. So for me, I think beyond the techniques of what we need to do, there's a state of being that we can work with right now and enhance and listen to, and then bring that as we come back to be in front of students. We're bringing this state of being that is curious. Curiosity is huge. Curious, willing to be in the unknown, and open to follow that impulse that you have. So for me, there's a state of being, and from that being comes those actions that you're talking about, where we go, okay, we're all 6 foot apart. You know, I saw Susie do this thing over there. Can you show me what you did there? Okay, everybody, let's try that. So our antenna is getting honed. You know, our antenna is getting honed as to, I think more of these impulses come when we come in with a curious, willing attitude. And if we're doing these, for me, if we're doing these things on our own, you know, these practices in quiet, these practices in inner looking, then we can keep checking ourselves when we come back. You know, I'm going to critique, and both of us are working on this at the same time, a judge and the educator that's coming in to critique. We've both been working on our state of being, and now there's this listening bowl happening between us. There's this bowl of listening, and we're open, and we're You know, I'm seeing you as a person who's gone through something now, just like I've gone through it. You know, I'm looking in the screen right now, and this is another person who since March has been going through this, just like I have. So there's also this state of equanimity and acceptance and loving kindness. And all of these things to me have really been, and
expansive, right? The whole idea, this whole idea, especially in these times, but always of compassion, you know, and understanding and being willing to collaborate, not only with our colleagues, but with our students, and you know, not being afraid of that idea that we're not enough if we don't come up with the totalness of the big answer, right? That whole idea of go get your cool bag and what do you got on the spot, you know? But finding the place, and I think you brought it back around perfectly to that idea of practicing first and then being ready to go, you know, into the world or into your rehearsals or whatever, or into a critique with that that knowledge and that understanding and that compassion, because you know the antithesis of that, right, is the criticism, and criticism is kind of to keep repeating kind of the conditioning that we've had over time of you know what we're supposed to be versus what really is in here. And I realize that's getting a little bit like woo down there, but you know, just going into a critique and saying, hi, how's it going today? You know, is kind of that icebreaker that allows the other person to then open to that understanding and that giving, should you come back with an alternative opinion about what they thought about your program, right? Or, you know, even the students being willing and open and knowing that your process is, okay, Jake, I just saw that. I just happened to see that you doing that while you were playing around, not paying attention, but that was really cool. And so instead of going to that place of, well, Jake wasn't paying attention, going to that place of Jake was kind of in his own body right there and just moving. He was in his own kind of, you know, beingness. And wow, something about that just really resonates with the times and with what we're doing right now, and let's all go ahead and learn that. And I feel that kind of I know even talking about this makes me feel a little bit less anxious about moving forward, not only within our own practices of color guard, but even to where else we might go with some of the other talents or other capabilities that we have and that we're good at, that we haven't quite tapped into yet, moving forward now. So.
Yeah. Well, I think that just being on social media for me, this time has been like mind-blowing. Just to see, there's performers that I know, there's other teachers, there's judges, there's volunteers, there's other people posting these things that they're doing, whether it's art or activism or parenting, you know, just like any kind of health things that people are doing, art, activism, parenting, health, creative ventures, you know, people are posting things that their music that they're making, that this is not going to be happening if we weren't having this time. Like, I've just been blown away. The age span of people in our community that are just coming alive. Photography, people are posting these amazing photos because they have the time to walk in nature or go to the garden, or these meals that people are creating. And we've been talking about creativity always being under the surface, but the thing that has been revealed is community. Our community is incredible. We have this competitive structure. We have a structure that's seasonal and competitive. That was removed. And under that, we have this bowl of community, this holding of community. And imagine this is getting looked at, strengthened. There's honest conversations happening. There's lifting up happening. There's awareness happening of of the community members and what can happen to bring us some wholeness. All of that underneath comes back with us when this returns, and the structure and the competitive and the way that we do things comes back. Underneath that all is this amazing bowl of creative community, loving community, community who champions each other. That comes back. So we're working on this also. We're working on ourselves, our own practices, and then we're also working on strengthening this and looking and understanding this and recalibrating this, and how can this come back with us. And that just makes me my heart just so happy, just thinking about everybody seeing each other again with this new woven connection. That gets me like, just seeing what is happening, that's the thing that keeps me above the surface. Right. It's just really lovely things that wouldn't be happening if we were,
Yeah, it is. I think that's you hit it right on the head with the kind of undercurrent, what was there and what can be tapped into to go back to self, and that, you know, kind of what we started talking about. And it reminds me of a quote that you just posted somewhere, and and I know this quote from when I was an undergrad. It's not the pot we are forming, but ourselves. You posted that somewhere, and it brought that flooding back to me. I feel like that perfectly kind of encapsulated what that is, with that pot that you know, is our collective kind of consciousness, working each one on our own to then form something new, because who knows what the activity in the immediate future might look like, but I feel like we'll be okay. We'll be available for whatever that is, with some of these practices and tools that we're or individually gathering to at some point collectively come together with. So,
and I think we can surround ourselves with things like, you know, if you want to have markers around, if you want to have music around, if you want to have paintings around, or have magazines to cut up, or have the things, you know, surround yourself with creative options, so that when you come back to that space, I've got my journal with me. I'm going to the grocery store. I've got my mask on, but I've got my journal inside in case when I get back in my car and I hand sanitize, I got to write down some couple of things that I thought of. And I've got my camera with me, my phone, and I'm taking pictures as I walk to keep myself sane every day. I think surround yourself with the things, and then also keep reaching out to people with kindness and consciousness and support. And I'm wondering how you are. You know, these are the things that are going to get us through, is these, you know, opening to our own creativity, and then opening to community.
I'm just so grateful for you and for this discussion. It's I think it's very necessary at this time, and I want to thank you for sharing you know, all of what you do and what you are and what you've been working on yourself for many years, and just helping all of us in this process. It's touching, very necessary to know and to tap into all of this with you is, I'm certainly grateful for it, that you're here and you're willing to open yourself and share in this process with everybody.